We are extremely happy and lucky to have with us today Mary Jetter for the Center for Educational Innovation. And the theme of Mary's presentation today as our keynote is meeting our students where they are teaching in 2022. This goes along with, as I mentioned to faculty before, undergrad faculty before, that the theme today is really student engagement. I know that faculty many faculty have expressed concerns about where student engagement is going right now. So that's part of our theme for today, and Mary's going to talk about that. Let me just briefly introduce Mary before she goes into her presentation. Mary is an educational program specialist who's been with the Center for Educational Innovation, or CEI, since 1999. Mary wears a number of hats at the center. She has provided leadership and facilitation for many of CEI's programs, including early career teaching and learning, mid-career faculty women's program, senior faculty fellows, and teaching for student well-being programs. With expertise in online teaching, Mary has facilitated the online course design seminar and the Making a Good Online Course Even Better program. She has developed and facilitated many workshops related to this topic. She's also an instructor in the International Teaching Assistant Program and coordinates the College of Science and Engineering's CSE Talk program for new international TAs. So welcome, Mary. I'm very glad that you could join us today, and I hope all of you enjoy Mary's presentation.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Michelle. As I was driving to work this morning, I was thinking I need a walkout song like baseball players have. I think we should all have walkout songs when we begin a workshop or a class or something. So I decided for today, mine would be Under Pressure by David Bowie and Queen, because first, anything by David Bowie and Queen is awesome. They're 80s songs. But also, I mean, I don't know about you, but the semester is coming and there's a lot of pressure, I think, that we're all feeling. So for me, so that's why I went with Under Pressure. I'm gonna, let's here, hang on a sec here. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So again, my name is Mary Jetter, and I would also like to take this moment to introduce my colleague, Claire Forste. Claire is one of my favorite wing people to work with. I invited Claire to join me today to help me with monitoring the chat, but Claire also has she has endless good ideas, so I've also invited her to jump in and share things as she would like. So Claire, do you want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Claire Forste, also at the Center for Educational Innovation. Good morning. Now I'm really thinking about what my walk-in song is. I don't know. I need some time to think about it. But it's really good to see you all. I started at CEI just before the pandemic hit, so have been involved in facilitating in many of the programs Mary has been a leader in. Also facilitate the early career teaching and learning program, work in the preparing future faculty program. So happy to share more. I'll probably share a few links over in the chat too, if you want to bookmark them for later, also be in Canvas. So good to see you all this morning. Happy Thursday.
Yeah. So your homework for today is to think what your walkout song would be, and then play it in your first day of class. Michelle's like, okay, I'm going to do that. Great. You can all see my screen, right? I just want to make sure. Okay, awesome. So to get started, I'm going to invite you to do a fun, I think, activity. Are any of you familiar with Mentimeter? No. Mentimeter is one of my favorite online tools. It's a great way to engage your students. It's free with some limited functionality if you use the free site, and it's not supported by the University of Minnesota. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a word cloud here. So if your last name begins with A through J, go to menti.com and use the code 40346322, and then respond to this question. How are you feeling about the upcoming semester? If your last name begins with K through Z, go to menti.com and use code 6133-7304 and respond to this question. How do you think your students are feeling about the upcoming semester? And you can see there's also QR codes there, so you can scan the QR code and it will take you to the site. And you can enter up to 3 words or phrases. So we're going to make a word cloud here. So I'll give everyone a minute to do that. Okay, okay, we will come back to that in a few minutes. So if you haven't had time or if you think of another word, go ahead and enter that. Okay, I have to figure out which mouse I'm using. So before I begin, I'll just talk about a few accessibility considerations that I've built into this presentation. And I want to give thanks to Dr. Liz Thompson from the University of Minnesota Morris. Liz is the Vice Chancellor for, I have to write it down, Student Affairs, and she's the Director for Equity, Diversity, and Intercultural Programs. And Liz, I basically copied the slide from Liz when they were doing a job talk basically last week. So things I'm going to do today, I will be reading all text aloud from the slides. And I know for a long time we were told, don't read directly from your slides. Well, now, in favor of accessibility, we are going to read things from slides. And the key thing you'll notice is that my slides are generally very simple, and they don't have a lot of words on them, because we don't want basically, reading the paragraph from the slide. That will happen at least once though today. But reading all text out loud is helpful for those with visual impairment. We'll be describing all of the images. I've been using high contrast colors. Slides are caption friendly and numbered. So by caption friendly, you'll notice I don't have anything at the bottom of my slides. And this is so if you have the Zoom captions on, you can still see what's on the slide, and it doesn't cut off the transcription. Also the slide numbers, just to make things more accessible for folks. I will tell you, if you use this template from the University of Minnesota, this does not play well with slide numbers because the M is where the slide numbers would be. So I'm actually going to reach out to University Relations today because then I had to move everything over and change the color. So there's that. I'll be using plain language and visuals. And the slide deck link is shared on Canvas. Do they have access to that now, Michelle?
Not yet. Oh,
Okay.
I mean, they don't have access to the slide deck quite yet, I don't believe.
Okay, Claire, can you pop that in the chat for me?
Yep, totally.
Okay, thank you. So those are just some things that I've done with this presentation to make it more accessible for everyone. The other thing I'll say is you're welcome to borrow things from my slides. I am happy to give things away. So if there's things that you like from my slides, you're more than welcome to borrow them, use them, adapt them. I'm just happy if people use them. So, okay. So our agenda for today, we're going to talk about the answers to these 3 questions. So first, what does the research tell us about students in 2022? What do we know about students in this kind of, sort of, but not really entirely post-pandemic era? And then we'll look at what is empathetic course design. And this is something that I just read about last month and it really piqued my interest. So I decided that we would talk about that today. And then we'll finish up with some strategies that you can use in the classroom to support everyone's well-being and also then hopefully increase engagement. So that is what we're going to talk about today. So first, looking at some of the data, what do we know about students? So the data that I am using comes from the College Pulse Survey, which is done in collaboration with Kaplan. They surveyed 2,000 undergrads nationwide. So this is not University of Minnesota specific, but I'm pretty sure the trends are exactly the same here. So there are students from 120 universities. The students were surveyed April 11th through the 18th of 2022. And they said that there's a plus or minus 2.5% margin of error. So that's a little bit of the background on the data. So to start, how is your overall mental health? So you'll see a pie chart here. And let's see here. So in the maroon, kind of the smallest color, you'll see that 9% said that their mental health was excellent. Okay, so 1 out of 10, that's okay. In good, in the yellow, 33% said that their mental health was good. So we're approaching about half of the students saying their mental health is excellent or good. But that leaves us with a whole lot of students here in this fair and poor, and then there were 2% that were not sure. So we have 34% that said their mental health was fair, and 23% said that their mental health was poor. So we can see here that this is still a challenge. It's an ongoing challenge. And one thing I'm really happy about is that President Gable has identified this as something for us all to be working on here at the University of Minnesota over the next few years and hopefully forever. So we have some work to do on what we can do to help our students feel better about their mental health. So on the next slide, I'm sorry, these graphics don't look the greatest here when they get blown up. So they asked also the question, what stressors have you most struggled to cope with in the past month? And you can see that there's a lot of them. So 57% of the students said that they struggle with keeping up with their schoolwork. 47% say that they feel pressure to do well. 46% are struggling with money concerns. 41% are struggle with balancing school and work, school and work. 27% are struggling with balancing school and family, and 26% are struggling with finding a job. And then they had many other data points there too that you can go back and look. Anyone can look at this data, you just have to give them your email, and tell them where you are and what you do. But you can see that based on just these 6 categories, and there were many more that were less significant in terms of the numbers, everyone's dealing with something and probably multiple somethings. So that's where, when we get to the empathetic course design, we'll talk about some things that you can do that might alleviate some of this. I mean, we can't obviously, finding a job, I'm not sure how much as instructors we're able to modify that. Pressure to do well, that might come from families, but what can we do in terms of helping students to balance their lives, to keep up with their work? So that's what we'll be looking at. Other issues were family issues, COVID disruptions, climate change, relationships, current events. So all of the things that we feel our students are feeling as well. And again, feel free to pop questions in the chat, or, and Claire, let me know if there's anything. So other survey highlights. So they're really not highlights. 73% of students report struggling with time management. How many of us struggle with time management? Okay, I see some nods and some hand waves. Yeah, I mean, students are dealing with it, we're dealing with it. 68% report struggling with anxiety or depression. And this is kind of in a way, a shocking number, but not surprising number. When you just think especially of what the last 2.5 years have been like for all of us in terms of the uncertainty of everything in our lives. 56% report struggling with financial insecurity. So getting enough, having enough money to pay for tuition, job disruptions because of COVID and all of that. 42% report struggling that they don't fit in. And there's a growing body of research in right now that talks about the concept of belongingness, and how in many ways belongingness could be considered the most important factor that predicts student success. So do students feel like they belong? Do they feel like they belong in the program? Do they feel like they fit in with their peers? Do they feel as though they are a part of the campus community or the classroom community or the program community? So, and there's lots of things that can affect this. First gen students often really struggle with belongingness because they don't have their parents to tell them, you know, this is how we did things, or this is where you go. Students from minoritized backgrounds, different sexual orientations, all of that. You know, if you're not kind of your typical Minnesota student, but even some typical students might feel like they don't belong, that they're not smart enough, that I'm not really, I shouldn't be in this program. So that's one of the most important things I think we can do as instructors, is really to support our students and help them feel like they do fit in, they do belong at the university, they do merit their place, and they can succeed. So that's my little speech on that. But there again, there's just a growing body of research on the importance of belongingness and how it is one of the largest student success factor indicators. And 37% report struggling with poor physical health. You know, sitting on our chairs and our desks all day probably has not helped our physical health in many ways. So that's kind of the sad, depressing stuff. But there is some positive stuff. There are some positive things from the survey. They also surveyed students to ask them about their experiences with faculty. 88% reported that the quality of rigor in the class was excellent or good. So they felt like they were being challenged enough and appropriately. You know, rigor doesn't mean that it was too hard, but that they were being challenged, that the instructor had standards and held them to it. 77% felt that their instructors communicated course expectations clearly, and 69% felt that their instructors were engaging. So there is some positive things out there, and these positives, I think, especially the communicating expectations and being engaging, I was really happy to see those numbers personally, because that also really supports student well-being. And then for graduate non-traditional students, it was a little bit harder to find data about that. Here is where I'm going to read from the paragraph on the slide. So graduate students suffer from mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, and emotional distress at an alarming rate. Estimates for the prevalence of these problems among graduate students range between 13% and 47%. These rates are 2 to 6 times higher than those in the general population. I'm going to say 13% is pretty low. And you know, that's just an estimate. I know, Claire, have you seen any data on grad students?
I think I've seen similar to kind of what you're sharing here, but I think if anyone has had a conversation with a group of graduate students about their mental health right now, I wouldn't be surprised if in this moment it was much higher than 13%.
Yeah, so, okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. So now let's go back and look at how you all responded to the Mentimeter. Okay, Claire, is the right slide showing? Can you see the word cloud?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'll put this in present mode. So this is the beauty of Mentimeter. So as you can see, the most common responses are larger and in the middle. So you're all feeling, well, many of you are feeling excited, but then we have nervous, anxious, unsure, uncertain, exhausted, stressed, let's see here, weary, behind. Yes, 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 and yes. But then also a lot of you are, excited, optimistic, encouraged, hopeful, positive, fine. Fine is okay, purposeful and energized. So that's, pretty much what I expected. Now let me go back to the other one. So now you see the back side of this. Okay, and how are our students feeling? Pretty much the same as we are feeling, right? So students are also probably excited, but also super anxious. What is going to happen this year with COVID? Are we going to have to wear masks? That's something I think that's always at the forefront of everyone's mind these days. Nervous. Okay, do I fit in? Am I going to succeed? How is this all going to work? Let's see, cautious, curious, let's see, overwhelmed, yep. But then I see lots of, so apprehensive and apprehension, but then there's also happy, future focused, anticipation, energized, ready, excitement, nervous, let's see, eager, willing, motivated, curious, and busy. So is there much difference between how our students are feeling and how we're feeling? Not much difference. I think so. The reason I wanted to do this is just to point out that commonality. I think we're all experiencing the same things, whether we are teachers, instructors, or students right now. And just to go back to a little bit about Mentimeter, just to show you, you can do all sorts of things. You can do word clouds, you can do multiple choice, open-ended questions, scales, ranking, Q&A, you can have quiz competitions. And again, this is free. You can only do 3 slides per presentation if you are using the free version, but you can have as many presentations as you want. So thinking about engaging students, this is one of my favorite ways to do it. You can do it as a check-in with your students. You can do it to see what they already know about a concept. So whatever you're going to be talking about, what do you know about, somebody tell me what you teach or put in chat. Cloud security. Okay, thank you, Norman. So yeah, what do you know about cloud security? Have students type that in, and that gives you an idea of where they're coming from, what ideas they have. Also, maybe what misconceptions they might have that you might need to check in on later on. So, so that's my little PR pitch for Mentimeter. They do not pay me. Okay, so let's move on here. So now we're going to talk a little bit about empathetic course design and what it is and how can this help us reach, support, and engage our students. Have any of you heard of this before? Empathetic course design? Okay, Lisa has, the people I can see on my screen. Yeah, so this actually is something that has been around for a while in terms of like e-learning and corporate online training, things like that. I hadn't really heard about it until there was an article in Faculty Focus. Are any of you familiar with Faculty Focus? That newsletter? Claire, can you pop the link in chat for me, please? Faculty Focus is a free newsletter that comes out once a week or so with just great practical articles about very timely teaching topics. So that's where this started, was from an article that I read in Faculty Focus. And I've linked to the original article up here in the Empathetic Course Design in the title. So the definition I'm going to read for you comes from Dan Saucier, kind of a fun name, from Kansas State. He is a professor of psychology and is a distinguished teaching award winner or something. But how he defines empathetic course design is, empathetic course design is the process by which we infuse empathy in our courses to make the experiences more positive and successful for both the students taking the course, but also for the teachers teaching the course. So this is something that benefits all of us. At the bottom of the page, you'll see there's a link, Engage the Sage, the Empathetic Course Design Perspective. That is a link to his YouTube. He has a great set of he has a great playlist there. He's created a bunch of videos. They're all about 5 minutes, really practical, engaging. And he has a whole series about empathetic course design. So the one I've linked to here is just the introductory one, but then he talks about empathetic assignments, about course policies, about syllabi, and all of that. And he has a lot of other, he also had 50 ways to disengage with your students. He asked his students, what are things that instructors do that make you tune out? And he reads a list of them. So he's got a great resource there. So that's something else that I recommend. Okay, so what does this mean, or what are we thinking about in terms of empathetic course design? So this comes from, this image I'm showing now, comes from a site called Shift Learning. And this is an instructional designer resource site. So it again focuses mostly on like corporate training and things, but it all applies across the board to us, I think. So thinking about elements of empathy. So first, see ourselves in their world. So what does it look like from the chair that they're sitting in, be it in a classroom or behind a screen, in front of a screen? What might they be feeling about things? So going back to our Mentimeter, are they anxious? Are they nervous? Are they excited? Are they motivated? Communicate understanding. So, going back again to the Mentimeter, we're all feeling the same way in many ways, and letting students know that we get that. And then accepting our students non-judgmentally. So if students need some extra time to do an assignment, thinking about what might be going on with their world rather than be like, oh, you're just really lazy. So these are just 4 elements of empathy. And then they also had this graphic that I really liked, and I'll describe it for us now here. So they have an empathy map, and this gets us thinking again about different ways to approach empathy and how we can think about this in terms of our courses. So the image is of a man divided into 4 puzzle pieces, and each puzzle piece represents a different element of empathy. So starting at the top, so thinking and feeling. So what is important to our students? What are their dreams? Emotionally, what moves them? Another thing that the research shows that the more we can get our students involved emotionally with our teaching, the more they will remember things. Emotion is a huge part of getting students engaged. Then going around to the right, so what's in their environment? Who or what surrounds them? What problems do they encounter? Are they undergrads living in a dorm and having to deal with all the dorm drama that can happen? Are they graduate students or non-traditional students who have family responsibilities, who might be working in addition to attending like a night class or things like that? So what might be some problems that they might encounter there? At the bottom, so say and do. What is their attitude? What are their opinions? What do they say? So thinking about, for example, if your course is a required course or a not required course. I always ask my students so I teach a course for the international grad students that they are required to take if their English is not at a certain level. And on the first day, I ask them why they're here. And inevitably, somebody will say, because I have to be here. So that doesn't always put us on a great footing to start. But then I ask them, what can you get from this class? How can this class help you in terms of your professional goals in the future, but also in terms of your studies right now? And then they realize, oh yeah, I'll have to be giving presentations and doing conferences and things. But kind of eliciting their attitudes can be really helpful, and then helping them to reframe them maybe. And then hearing what influences are there. So what do their friends say, their significant others, their families, especially a lot of students who might come from immigrant backgrounds are dealing with family considerations, and then also trying to balance that with school. I've heard that from some of the freshmen that I've worked with. What media channels are influential? I mean, what's the narrative right now about higher education in the media? It's not always the best. So helping, so just being aware of that, I think, is really important. And then on the left, or on the right side, sorry, thinking about, their pain. So what are their fears, frustrations? What are their obstacles? What are their risks? And then finally, the gain. So what do they want to achieve? How do they measure success? And what strategies might help them to reach their goals? So empathetic course design comes at our course from all of these different perspectives. And again, it's really about putting ourselves in the student's shoes and recognizing how students might be feeling. So thank you, everybody. I hope this was helpful.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Claire. I think it was very helpful.
And feel free to reach out to either of us if you have questions or you want to talk more about things. We're happy to talk.